Hello, welcome to Podfics Galore. I'm your horrible online reader, Goldscythe. I read out loud fanfictions for you busy bees, free of charge and no strings attached. Today I will continue reading the Naruto Alternative Universe fic by MisatosPenpen and PhoenixInnocence called Scars. I hope you can at least try to enjoy my voice, and I will try my best for you with the equipment available to me. Note, this fic is rated explicit. On with the show.
Scars, Chapter 7. Thursday, November 12th. Putting it hard to be around Itachi anymore with them arguing every time they saw each other, Sasuke grabbed Deidara and told him he needed to get out of the house. He had finally vented, confronted Itachi with how betrayed he felt, and it made him feel better, but he knew Itachi didn't deserve everything, he said. "Why do you need me?" Deidara asked as he followed Sasuke outside. "I'm afraid to drive after the concussion. That's the only reason I've dragged you along. I'll let you drive the Cadillac." Deidara happily took Sasuke's keys. Sasuke stared out of the side window the entire time. Deidara could tell how testy Sasuke was, so he didn't make small talk or sing to the radio. Sasuke guided him as the blonde drove. They ended up on the street he grew up on. He got out of the car. They stood on the roadside opposite the property. "Where are we?" Deidara asked. "My family estate." "If we're being chased by unknown people, wouldn't this be the last place we should be?" Deidara asked. Sasuke grumbled, his eyes focusing on the site where his ancestral home used to stand. The black iron gates were still there, as were the brick columns on either side of the gated driveway with their stone foxes on top. He actually hadn't been on the ground since just after his family died. Over 150 years ago, his ancestor, Indra, a Japanese immigrant who'd sold everything he had for this chance, bought many acres of land here. He was told it was good farmland, a clear prairie. Ended up being a forested series of hills. The man who sold it was just selling off squares from a simple map with no topography. Even he didn't know what he was selling. Indra worked hard to clear most of the land, and the first house on it was a little more than a shack. It grew to a log cabin built with the trees cut down. It took a long time to develop the crops and then a business. The family allowed much of the forest to regrow once they moved from farming to business. The house Sasuke grew up in was only 50 years old. Now there was nothing. "I'm serious here, baby Uchiha. People are after us. Won't they look for us here?" Sasuke sighed. "I doubt they'd be here. I did shoot one of them in the shoulder and the gut. They shouldn't bother us for a while. With all that's gone on, I just had to see it again. The last time he was here, Naruto had been the one to bring him, stating that sometimes you needed to remember where you came from. It was retaliation for a poor comment he'd made about Naruto's parents. He no longer recalled the comment, but he remembered how furious Naruto had been. At the time, he had felt like he was losing his family again. He was standing in his kitchen, making tea, his attention caught by a rabbit in his back garden. Obito immediately sprang to mind on a summer day in Sasuke's past. Obito had been practicing his aim with a slingshot in the fields of the Uchiha estate in an attempt to impress one of his friends. Sasuke had tried his best to ignore him, sitting under the cool shade of a tree and reading a book, but Obito's curses kept interrupting him. His aim was terrible, but he kept slinging rock after rock, completely missing his target of an empty can of green beans. In frustration, he had taken one last aim and struck a passing rabbit. Obito had whimpered, kneeling beside the sandy-colored creature, its body unmoving. Sasuke had closed his book and walked over, bending over to look at the pathetic animal. "I think you killed it," Sasuke said, causing Obito to break down in tears. He remembered Itachi and Shisui running up to them, Shisui kneeling next to Obito and begging him not to cry, while Itachi examined the felled rabbit. "I killed it!" Obito had wailed. "I'm sure it's just stunned, right, Tachi?" Shisui turned to ask Itachi. The memory came out of the blue, so sudden that Sasuke had dropped the ceramic mug of tea he had been holding. It was simple, one simple aspect of his cousin that he had completely forgot about it. He couldn't recall Shisui's eyes. He felt like he was hyperventilating. Trying as hard as he couldn't bring to mind Shisui's eyes. He raced through his house and into the room full of boxes, tearing at the lids for a picture of his cousin. Just one picture. But he couldn't find one. Sasuke sank to the floor as the tears fell, his body shaking as he tried to picture his family, only to realize that he was slowly forgetting them. Tiny details of his family were slowly disappearing, but what hurt the most was his mother. He couldn't remember her laugh. She was always laughing, and now he couldn't. It felt like he betrayed her, one of the things that meant the most to him, and he forgot. For the second time in 2 years since the massacre, he had broken down, and for the second time Naruto had been there, forcing his way in. Sasuke remembered Naruto sitting down next to him and just letting him cry. But instead of being happy for the chance to grieve, he had been furious. Naruto had seen him crying, again, and it angered him. He flushed as he spoke. "What are you doing here, Dobe?" "Checking on you," Naruto answered without missing a beat. "I don't need you to babysit me." "Who's babysitting?" Naruto laughed. "I just thought I would keep you company." "Go home." "I don't want to." "Get away from me. Go home to your parents. You think you can understand me? You think you know what this is like?" "I didn't say I did." It didn't take long for things to escalate from there. Sasuke had lashed out, using words to hurt his friend, and Naruto had retaliated in the only way he could, forcing Sasuke by the collar to face his memories. Naruto dragged Sasuke into his car and drove him to the empty field where Sasuke had spent nearly his whole life. And once he was there, facing his family property, he could recall everything that was missing of his family. He ended up crying again in Naruto's arms, remembering his mother's laugh. "Yoo-hoo, baby Uchiha!" Deidara teased, sticking his face right up in Sasuke's. "Are you in there?" Sasuke leveled him with a glare. "Of course I'm here. Where else would I be?" "I don't know, but I've been talking to you for the last 5 minutes. But you haven't been talking to me. Who would want to talk to you?" Deidara clutched his heart. "You offend me. Here I thought you really liked me, baby Uchiha." Sasuke rolled his eyes and turned back towards Deidara's truck. Just because Sasuke hadn't murdered his brother's lover didn't mean he liked him. "Sasuke Uchiha?" a woman called, leaning in to get a better look at him. Her face lit with recognition. "It is you! How have you been?" Sasuke tried to recall the woman talking to him. She looked slightly familiar, but her name eluded him. "You don't remember me?" she asked. "Sorry, no." She smiled acceptingly. "It was a trying time then. I'm not surprised you don't remember me. I'm Teresia Stewart. I used to be the groundskeeper. Actually, I still live right over there." She pointed to a house about 50 yards down the road. Sasuke's eyes lit with recognition. He still couldn't place the face, but he could place the name. "I do remember, Miss Stewart. Forgive me. I think you were the first person I was taught to address in American fashion. My mother was always fond of the roses you tended." She bowed her head at the praise. "It's been a while since I saw you here last," she continued. "You were with a blonde then too, but if I'm not mistaken, this isn't the same blonde." She tapped her chin, squinting in the glaring sunlight at Deidara. Deidara plastered a fake wide smile, wrapping his arm around Sasuke's shoulders. No, the other was Tanner. You're too pale." Sasuke snorted as Deidara's jaw dropped. He recovered quickly enough, his arm back around Sasuke's shoulders. "That's his boyfriend." "Naruto is not my boyfriend," Sasuke growled, throwing Deidara's arm off him. "Oh," the woman remarked sadly. "The two of you looked so close, though." Sasuke swallowed down a growl and turned to the woman. He didn't know why he felt the need to defend himself to a stranger, but he was. His face relaxed, but he wasn't able to smile like Naruto could, one of his rare attributes he was jealous of. "We're just friends." "Yeah, just friends," Deidara whispered. Sasuke shot him with another glare. "Maybe if you're just friends, I can have him." "You're in a relationship. Stay away from him." Deidara laughed. "I thought you were just friends." "We are, and I knew Naruto could do better than you." Deidara's hands were at his heart again. "Ouch, baby Uchiha, that hurt. I take it you're better than me then?" "Anyone is better than you." The woman laughed. "It was great seeing you again, Sasuke." Sasuke turned to stare at her, forgetting for a moment that she was there. He nodded. "Nice to see you too. It's good to think something about that made my mother smile." She smiled at that and turned to walk away, but turned suddenly. Do you mind if I ask you a personal question? Okay, Sasuke replied slowly. He didn't want to be rude to a woman who worked for his family, but he didn't really want to answer a personal question either. Are you going to rebuild here? You had such a lovely house, and I admit I missed looking out my kitchen window and seeing it on the horizon. Sasuke was taken aback. I really don't know what I plan to do, he mumbled, shaking his head. I do still own the land, and I loathe to sell it. I understand. Fire is such a fiendish devil. I can still remember seeing the blaze and the black smoke filling the air. I watched it until I got a call about my daughter being in an accident. Sasuke swallowed thickly, nodding along with her monologue. It's hard to believe it's been 11 years. I remember it clearly, police cars all over the place, firemen hurrying about, even the men on the back roads. Sasuke went still. Men on the back roads? The woman nodded. Yes, they were back there. I thought they were with the emergency responders. Were they not? I'm sure they were, he said. It's getting late, and there's some place I have to be soon. Oh, don't let me hold you up then, she smiled, shooing him away. It was nice talking to you. Wait, Sasuke called to stop her. Your daughter, was she alright? She was in a car accident. She broke her leg and her wrist, but she recovered just fine. I'm very glad. I'd hate to hear someone else suffered like I did that day. She nodded to him, not sure what to say to that, and left. Sasuke climbed into the passenger seat of Deidara's truck. What's up, baby Uchiha? He asked, climbing into the driver's seat. You look peculiar. I'm not sure, but I do know this. There were no emergency personnel on the back roads that night. At least none that were documented. The roads near the house are a little more than game trails. A fire truck would not have been able to navigate them, nor the dirt roads further back. I wasn't in town when it happened, but Itachi was. I want to know what he may have seen that night. There was no reason for anyone to be on the back roads, Itachi said when they got back. At least not at night. I know they searched the entire property the next morning to find evidence and look for anyone who might have survived. The actual road is pretty far back and to the north of the house. How would you have seen anyone at night? The fire provided a lot of light when it was a full moon, Sasuke said. I remember because I was listening to music looking at the sky that night when I got the call. Photographs were pretty clear in the files. Why wasn't she interviewed? She's not mentioned in any of the reports. She said she got the call about her daughter being in an accident and left before anyone could talk to her. Perhaps it was father getting away. Using the back road that leads back into the forest, he could avoid anyone coming to investigate. That road eventually meets a public road. It's a perfect escape route if you don't mind the trek. How does this help us? Deidara asked. So you know the route your father used to escape. That doesn't bring you any closer to finding him, or evidence of your innocence. True, Itachi said. Even if he left anything behind back there, it's been years. It'd be degraded, or it could be argued that anyone could have left it. Sasuke sighed. I really don't know what else we can do to find him. Maybe I should go home. I can just lie and say I went out of town and partied. And take it at my job for them to fire me. Or I can even tell them about the hitman and tell them I was laying low and trying to lure them out on my own or whatever. You want to give up? Deidara asked, horrified. We can't go forward, Sasuke argued. What do we do now? The three of us just stay here living off your low-ass salary? I do have a life to get back to. Even if they fire me for this, I can take control of the company. I can even hire your fake identity, Itachi, and you can continue working from home. Here in Ame, or I could get you an apartment here in the city. Itachi sighed, defeated. Sasuke was right. There wasn't anything else to do. Give it another day. I'll try to think of something and then we'll talk about those options. Okay. Sakura pulled her jacket tighter against her body, shivering slightly. Neji asked her to meet him here alone, that it was important. When she arrived, he was leaning against his car, looking at the vacant lot in front of him. It sent chills down Sakura's spine to look at it. She suspected where she was. This is what used to be Sasuke's home, Neji finally said. Sakura nodded. She wondered why they were there. If it had anything to do with Sasuke or someone else. I used to visit his house often. Our families had been friends for many generations. It was a lovely home, and it's a shame Sasuke had what was left of it razed. Sakura nodded again. I haven't been here in 11 years, Neji said. Sakura bit her lip, shivering. Why are we here, Neji? You didn't drag me out here to talk about Sasuke or the house he grew up in. Naruto's acting strange, he said. I know, Sakura said. She should have known it'd be about her partner. His behavior was beginning to really worry her, but she was tolerant. If her lover had disappeared on her, she wasn't sure she'd hold up under the strain either. The others would cut him the same slack if they knew their true relationship. Do you know why? I've been wondering about it too. It seems to be deeper than just worry over his best friend disappearing. But Naruto hasn't talked to me. Not about Sasuke. Not about anything, really. She didn't mention that she was unhappy with Naruto shutting her out. Neji frowned. It really grated on his nerves how everyone referred to Naruto and Sasuke as best friends, when he'd known Sasuke just as long as Naruto had. They were friends too. Really, it should have been the more logical choice that he and Sasuke would carry that title. They were physically and intellectually on the same page. Naruto couldn't hold a candle to them. And yet, it was Naruto branded with the honor of best friend. Look, just tell him to chill. He's freaking everyone out, including yourself. And Kakashi-sensei is on the verge of ordering a fresh psyche eval on your partner, Neji said. That's harsh, Sakura said, temper slowly rising. Neji was interfering, putting his nose in where it didn't belong. She could handle Naruto. She didn't need anyone to tell her how. Naruto was her partner. She could take care of her partner, unlike some people. He's worried. I doubt he's ever had to worry about something like this before. It's new to him, and it's his way of coping. I'm just giving you a heads up. Why did you ask me to meet you here? She asked. It wasn't a long drive from the field office, but out of the way in the foothills. I just had to check. I didn't know. Kakashi's checked everywhere else. I thought I'd check here too. This was the only place I could think of. There's no house now, but it was the last place I could think to look. I asked you here because I didn't want to leave, hoping Sasuke might show up. Hello, Miss Stewart said. She had a small dog on a leash, obviously out for a sunset dog walk. Hello, Neji and Sakura said. I remember you, Miss Stewart said. You used to visit all the time, Sasuke's friend. That's right, Neji nodded. Well, if you're looking for Sasuke, you've missed him by a few hours. Sasuke was here? Sakura gasped. Her mind was reeling. She truly thought he was dead not to have contacted Naruto. Yes, he was with a blonde. Naruto? Neji asked. No, it wasn't Naruto with Sasuke today. This guy was teasing Sasuke about how close he was to Naruto. What time was Sasuke here earlier? Neji asked, ignoring the woman's comment. Around 2. I was shocked to see him here. I thought he had abandoned the place. What with the murders and his brother being fugitive and all. Can you describe the blonde that was with him? Sakura asked. Tall, over 6 feet, long blonde hair pulled up in a ponytail. He had blue eyes and was pale, though not as pale as Sasuke is. Late 20s, maybe? He was lean, what you'd call a beanpole. Did it look like Sasuke was under duress? The woman paused, slightly taken aback. Not at all. Is something wrong? No, Neji said, attempting a calming smile. I just thought visiting would be upsetting for him. I wanted to make sure he was fine. He seemed fine. He was bickering with the other man. Bickering? Neji asked, surprised. It was funny to watch, really. It reminded me of the way Sasuke and Naruto would bicker on their way home from school. Those two were constantly fighting, yet attached at the hip. The best of friends. She laughed. Neji bit the inside of his cheek, thankful that the sun was setting behind him and the nearest street lamp was down the street from them. He knew he couldn't hide his anger at the stranger's words. Why was it always Naruto? I miss seeing them around here. All of them. It feels like a ghost town without one of the Uchihas constantly coming and going. I really hope Sasuke rebuilds here. It would be nice to see it alive once again. I do too, Neji agreed. The woman took a deep breath. Well, you enjoy the rest of your night. Neji and Sakura nodded as the woman continued up on the road towards her own home. Sasuke was here? Sakura said quietly. He may come back. I'm going to call Kakashi and ask to stake out the place. Hatake, Kakashi said, answering his phone. He sat up straight. The first time in a week he felt like Sasuke was within his grasp. I'll meet you there, he said. He grabbed his jacket from the back of his chair and slipped it on, heading for his car. He paused long enough to watch Naruto once again on his phone. He shook his head, wondering how someone could talk so much in such a short amount of time. It looked like he was having trouble getting through this time. Genom had gone home, so he headed towards Naruto. Naruto watched Kakashi walk toward him, a curious look on his face. Naruto put his phone to sleep and Kakashi his full attention. "What's up?" "Stakeout," Kakashi said, directing Naruto to the stairs. "Where at?" "The Uchiha estate." "Do you think Sasuke could turn up there?" Naruto asked, eyes going wide. "It's a possibility," Kakashi said. He watched Naruto closely, noting how tense he seemed, almost on the verge of panic. It was an odd reaction. Coming? Naruto grabbed his own jacket and followed Kakashi to the stairway and down to the parking garage. Kakashi drove, turning up the road Sasuke's home used to sit on. It was barren, quite different from the last time Kakashi had seen it. The house half burned and still smoldering. "Neji? Sakura?" Kakashi said, exiting his car. Naruto frowned at Sakura, tilting his head in question. Sakura answered with barely a shake of the head. He'd have to wait for answers from his partner. "We had confirmation that Sasuke was seen here as recently as this afternoon. A woman who's lived here for years recognized him. She told us he was in the company of another male. Tall, lean, blonde hair, blue eyes, late 20s. Kakashi's gaze shifted to Naruto as Neji gave the description. The only things that didn't match Naruto was being tall, who was just slightly shorter than Sasuke, and being lean. Naruto was stockier in build, a trait best suited for a rugby team. "Was he under duress?" Kakashi asked. "She said he wasn't," Sakura said. "And do you believe Sasuke may return?" Kakashi asked. "I don't know," Neji said, "but it's all we have at the moment. We've gone nowhere with our past cases, open or closed, and we know Sasuke was here. It may be a stretch that he would come back, but I don't think we should ignore the possibility even if it seems unlikely." Kakashi nodded. "You two take the first watch then. Naruto and I will be back in the morning." Kakashi really didn't want to leave Naruto unsupervised, and Sakura was not the one he wanted watching him. Neji shook his head. "That leaves the back road open. He could come and go as he pleased, and would never see it from the main road." "Naruto and I will take the back road then." Itachi sat in the darkened living room alone, his hand propping up his chin as he stared at the shadows the backyard lights threw on the wall. The back road. The back road. Awareness sparked in Itachi's eye and he bolted up. He went to Sasuke's room and opened the door. "Sasuke, get up!" Sasuke whined under the covers, but Itachi ignored him and went to Deidara's studio. Deidara was still up playing with molding clay. "I need you and Sasuke to check on something." "Now?" Deidara asked petulantly, holding something that vaguely resembled a bird. "Right now." Sasuke was never a morning person. That is to say, he hated waking up more than anything. He wasn't fully conscious when he was bundled into Deidara's truck. He sat curled up in his coat and scarf in the passenger seat during most of the journey. He wasn't aware where they were going or why, and he really didn't care at the moment, dozing most of the way. He finally woke up when the truck went off-road, his head hitting the window when the wheels rolled over a rougher terrain. "What the hell?" His head was still tender from his brushing with the hitman a few days ago. "Sorry, baby Uchiha," Deidara said without sincerity. The truck stopped and Deidara slipped out, leaving the headlights on. Sasuke looked around through the windshield and passenger window, and saw absolutely nothing. He nearly fell out of the truck, missing the running board. "Can you tell me why we are out in the middle of the field after midnight?" Sasuke asked, slamming the truck door shut behind him. He was a little dizzy, which he put down to not being fully awake. "You don't recognize this place?" Deidara asked. Shock splashed across his face. "Should I?" Sasuke said sleepily, yawning behind his hand. "That's where you and Tachi's house used to be. We were here this afternoon. You really don't recognize it?" "It's dark out," Sasuke defended, pulling his coat tighter around himself. He suddenly felt like he was in the middle of a graveyard. "This is where you lived 2/3 of your life and you didn't realize—" "I said it was dark. Anyway, I haven't been on the property in years." "Right, you like to stare at the property from across the street." "I think you have some serious issues, baby Uchiha," Deidara whistled. "Stop calling me a baby already. I'm a grown adult." Deidara stared transfixed at the temperamental Uchiha. What is it that you're looking for? Deidara shrugged his shoulders and turned away, grabbing the shovel from the bed of his truck and staking it in the dirt. He tugged the shovel free, walking forward 3 feet and stabbing the dirt again, to the same result. With another tug, he was free and walking forward again. Sasuke watched disinterested as Deidara continued on the 3-foot pattern, distancing himself from the truck until he was no longer in sight. What are you doing, idiot? Sasuke finally asked, crossing his arms and frowning. Thought you said it was around here, Deidara remarked, turning towards Sasuke. You know, you could be helping. And miss watching you making a fool of yourself? No thanks. Deidara cursed under his breath and continued stepping the ground. He started heading back towards the truck, continuing his 3-foot pattern. Sasuke turned around to look at the property. He still paid for the place to be maintained so the neighbors didn't complain about blight, so the grass was short. He couldn't see the place where the house had stood in the darkness, but knew it was broken concrete and grassless sandfill from filling in the basement. Deidara forced the shovel into the ground again, a thunk answering. What was that? Sasuke demanded, uncrossing his arms and walking up to Deidara. That's what we're here for, Deidara smirked. He got down on his knees and searched through the dirt and grass until he found a metal ring. Here, help me lift the door. The ring was too small for them both to grab, so Deidara yanked Sasuke's scarf from his neck and tied it to the ring. Sasuke was annoyed, but he felt it had to be important for Itachi to send them out like this, suddenly, in the middle of the night. They grabbed the scarf together, smashing their arms together and pulled, grunting as the rusted metal door finally gave away slowly, ripping up rooty grass and weeds to reveal a recess in the ground. How did Itachi know this was here? Sasuke gasped for breath, bent double and leaning on his knees for support. I've never seen this before. Sasuke stared down the narrow stairwell, trying to discern anything from the darkness. This isn't part of the cellar. After you, baby Uchiha, Deidara said, holding out a flashlight for Sasuke to take. Sasuke resisted the urge to roll his eyes again and grabbed the light, flicking it on. He stepped into the unknown, Deidara following close behind with a flashlight of his own. The wooden stairs were rotting and did make a creak, too old and moist, but they seemed strong enough to hold in their weight. Sasuke shivered when he heard squeaking and the patter of tiny rodent feet as he reached the bottom of the steps. He could handle the cobwebs that adorned the room in abundance. He could even tolerate the insects that made themselves at home over the years, but when it came to rodents, there was something inherently creepy about them. He promised himself he would buy a snake if any house of his ever had one rodent. Or a cat. Yeah, something that would tear the little vermin apart. Taking a deep breath, Sasuke held his repulsion at bay and looked around the room slowly. The beam of light from his flashlight lit the walls, landing on old barrels rotted with age. He heard more scurrying and turned away quickly, ignoring the knowing smirk on Deidara's face. You know, Dachi doesn't like mice either. How nice, Sasuke snarled, his light landing on what looked like a hole in the ground. So he sent his little brother and lover in instead. Actually, I think he's deathly afraid of them, Deidara laughed. Sasuke ignored him and walked towards the hole, noting that it resembled a very wide well the closer he got, or even a small swimming pool. This one time, I bought a tiny mouse at a pet store and brought it home. Dachi freaked out. Laughing, Deidara turned to look at Sasuke, who was leaning over the hole. The smile slid from his face, and he reached out to grab Sasuke, pulling him back quickly when he started to lean in too far. What are you doing? Sasuke jerked his arm out of Deidara's grip. I was looking for whatever it is that Itachi sent us here to find. Stupid, baby Uchiha, you almost fell in a hole. Sasuke snorted. I don't think so. He leaned forward a little again. Deidara wondered just how well he really was. Deidara shined his light over the well in front of Sasuke. Sasuke frowned and bent down, gripping the edge of the well that jutted from the ground, shining his light down inside. It lit up the bottom. It's empty, Deidara remarked. You have a wonderful talent for stating the obvious, Sasuke sneered. Okay, Deidara replied. And why do we have empty holes on your property? Sasuke snorted again. They're cisterns. You can tell that by what is left of the waterproof lining. They were built to hold rainwater in times of drought. Fancy. No, Sasuke drawled. It was about self-preservation and a pretty primitive system. The Uchiha family got our start in the farming business when we first came over from Japan, and irrigation was essential for survival. This whole area used to be fields, even a good portion of that forest. It doesn't look like they were used in over a century. For once, I have to agree with you. The Uchiha haven't farmed anything in over 60 years. We made our fortune elsewhere. There's so many of them! Deidara whistled, shining his light over 8 separate holes. The Uchiha were the #1 producers of tea in the Fire Country back then, before we started importing it from other countries. We also grew soybeans and brewed our own soy sauce. Sharingan still does on a commercial level. We must have relied on these reserves until they were replaced by piped water. Sasuke stood and made his way to the next cistern, shining his light on the bottom. Did Itachi not tell you what we were looking for? Deidara copied Sasuke and looked down the nearest cistern to him. He said he remembered these bunkers, as he called them, and that he and his cousin used to play around here in one that was left open until your uncle found out and closed it. He thought this might be where that mystery person was going to or leaving from, since it's so close to the back road. Maybe the murder weapon was disposed of here. Deidara came to the last cistern on his side. Oh my. What? Sasuke asked, looking up quickly. I think we found something. Sasuke walked over and added his light to Deidara's, highlighting a solitary human skull at the bottom. He frowned and swung his leg over the ledge, panicking Deidara. What the hell are you doing? What does it look like, idiot? I'm going down to look. But you don't know what's down there. Sasuke rolled his eyes. That's why I'm going to look around. But there may be mutant rodents down there. Do you really want to see that? Sasuke paused momentarily, an image of a 2-headed rat with 6 tails creeping in his imagination. He shook his head off the image, replacing it with the image of Naruto's 9-tailed fox pendant instead. There's no such thing as mutant rodents, idiot. Haven't you ever heard the story of the giant rat of Sumatra? No, and I don't care to hear it now either, Sasuke replied, and dropped down in the hole, landing hard on his feet. Deidara shrieked and followed, landing next to Sasuke, who was already bent over the skull. Great movie, by the way. Dead Alive? Deidara took the chance to look around, noticing the low ceiling and archways. This reminds me of one of those ancient open baths, only without the water. Sasuke crouched and looked around himself. His light landed on more bones. It looked like a femur and a few ribs. He rotated to shine his light over the whole well and saw the bones scattered everywhere. There was torn clothing too. Rodents must have pulled the bones around when they were eating the corpse, Sasuke commented in dispassionate voice, now in a professional mode. Deidara shrieked and pressed his body against the side of the well. So there are rats in here! Sasuke was hesitant to touch anything for a closer look, but there was no forensic value here after all the rodent and insect activity. He turned back to the skull and picked it up. He felt like Hamlet for a moment, pondering mortality. Who in the world could this be? He was good at deducing cause of death and other details from corpses, but he was not so good with skeletons. He couldn't even tell if this was a skull of a man or a woman. Naruto teased him about that from time to time. He tried to put a face on that skull, but failed. He set it down reverently, not knowing if this was a family member or not. He looked around the skull and saw strands of black hair. That didn't mean this was a family member, but most everyone in his family had long or longish black hair, male or female. What is this? Deidara asked, bending down and picking something up. Sasuke walked up to him and paused. Give me that! He demanded, and grabbed the object from Deidara's palm, eyeing the jewelry with scrutiny. It was a gold signet ring, the outline of a fan raised from the otherwise flat top of the ring. Sasuke felt his stomach drop, his eyes landing on the skull. He removed his gun, dropping his flashlight in the process, and aimed the gun at Deidara. What are you playing at? He hissed. Whoa, baby Uchiha, just calm down here. Deidara defended, instinctively putting up his hands. Don't tell me be calm. What the fuck is Itachi playing at? His voice echoed loudly in the cistern. I don't know what you mean. Stop lying to me. I trusted Itachi. Sasuke was nearly wailing. I actually believed he was innocent. He is innocent. No, he's a cold-blooded murderer. He murdered our family just like the FBI said. He's innocent, I tell ya. Then prove it. Because as far as I see, he set our father up for the murder just to clear out his own name. That's because your father did it, Deidara defended. No, my father's dead and was dumped down here, Sasuke snapped, gesturing briefly at the skull with his gun. Deidara lowered his gaze quickly to look at the skull by Sasuke's feet before hurriedly turning them on Sasuke again. How do you know that's your father? His ring. It passed down from father to son. It disappeared the night of the fire and was never recovered. And he thought she was wrong. Someone else set him up for murder, Deidara muttered. Oh, we have to tell him what we found. He'll be devastated. Stop lying for him, Sasuke growled. If my father is down here, then that makes Itachi the murderer. No, Itachi is innocent. You only say that because you're sleeping with him, Sasuke snapped. I'm done playing his games. He fooled me this time, but I won't give him the second chance. I'm sick of being manipulated. I'm turning you both in. Sasuke dug into his pockets looking for his phone, pausing when Deidara chuckled. Itachi has your phone? Then I'll just have to take it back. By morning, both of you will be behind bars where you belong. Yeah, let's get your phone back from Itachi, Deidara urged. In fact, I won't fight you. I'll come along peacefully. I'll even do the driving. How does that sound? What are you up to? Sasuke demanded, frowning. I just want to see Itachi one last time before he turns in. I'm sure he's anxious to hear what we found. Sasuke's eyes narrowed, but he motioned with his gun to get moving. Sasuke wasn't entirely sure he could drive with his head wound, especially at night, so he was sort of reliant on Deidara for transportation. Sasuke had to holster his gun briefly to jump up and pull himself out of the well. Deidara wisely stood back and didn't help. Deidara kept his hands at shoulder level as he walked up the stairs and back out into the chilly night air. Sasuke followed without taking his sights from Deidara's back. The night air whipped at Sasuke's hair, tossing it askew. He ignored it as they made their way towards Deidara's truck. A small commotion to the left of them caught Sasuke's attention. The first thing he noticed was a shock of white hair in the moonlight. His heart leapt into his throat, and he took an involuntary step towards it before a shock of blonde hair appeared beside the white. He locked eyes with Naruto and then Kakashi before he raced for the truck, holstering his gun, Deidara in his heels. Go, go, go! Sasuke urged. Naruto shouted for him to stop, Kakashi repeating the words as they ran across the field to reach him. Sasuke slid to a stop on the driver's side, wresting the door open and flinging himself into the passenger seat. Deidara climbed in behind him into the driver's seat and started the ignition. He flew past Naruto and Kakashi's shocked faces. Sasuke, expressionless except for a small amount of shock in his eyes, met their eyes ever so briefly as the truck raced by them. Naruto clutched his aching side, breathing hard. Kakashi stopped next to him, breathing just as deeply. Naruto had fallen asleep and Kakashi had been reading with a small booklight, so they both missed the first appearance of the truck and its headlights, but Kakashi saw the lights when he looked up for a moment. They ran rather than drove, so they could approach more quietly and without headlights. That didn't go exactly how I planned it, Naruto said. You had a plan? I meant seeing Sasuke again, Naruto growled. Kakashi frowned. Sasuke didn't look excited to see us. He looked shocked, Naruto agreed. Kakashi nodded, pulling his ringing phone from his pocket. Hatake. Naruto turned when he heard Sakura's voice over the phone. Keep tailing them and don't lose them. Naruto and I are on our way. Kakashi turned on his heel and ran back towards his car, Naruto following close behind. What was that about, Kakashi-sensei? Sakura and Nechi are following Sasuke's truck. How did they know it's Sasuke? Naruto huffed, pulling open the car door and ducking inside. The truck left through the front gate, right past them. Sakura pulled up beside him and saw him in the passenger seat and followed. Naruto offered a curt nod and stared at the road in front of them, Kakashi hurrying to catch up to Sakura. He itched to call Itachi to warn him that they found Sasuke and may be heading in his direction. Something in the pit of his stomach squirmed at the thought of Itachi arrested for murder. Kakashi's phone rang again a minute later. Hatake? With a sigh, Kakashi eased up on the gas. Where are you now? We'll be there soon. What happened? Naruto questioned. Sakura blew a tire on the freeway. She lost them, but Nechi got the license plate number. Damn it! Naruto growled, but inside he was sighing in relief. Itachi was free for another day. Sasuke stared over the back of his seat, watching Sakura's unpretentious sedan following close behind their truck. He recognized Sakura as the driver and Neji in the passenger side as the orange sodium streetlights whipped past. Deidara cursed and got on the freeway. Sakura kept pace with them. She won't let up, so you'll have to lose her quickly, Sasuke stated, his professional calm kicking back in now that they were essentially in a car chase. He had been a passenger and a driver in car chases, but he'd never been the one being chased before. Deidara didn't have the time to wonder over Sasuke's switch from holding a gun on him to running from the cops with him. Deidara jerked the wheel to the right and cut across 3 lanes of traffic, barely making the exit ramp. Sakura was right behind him, close enough for him to see the maniacal gleam on her face in the rearview mirror. "She really doesn't let up!" Data exclaimed. He twisted past one on-ramp and then barreled up another, going the opposite of their previous direction. Sasuke was caught between watching where they were going and watching Sakura tail them. "We need to get off the freeway and into the city. There are more places to hide." "Yeah, and more stoplights too! Do you have a better idea?" Sasuke growled. A loud popping noise caught Sasuke's attention, and he turned to watch Sakura's car fall behind, swerving into a nearby ditch. The tires apparently weren't up to the sharp turns at speed. "Damn, blown tire," Deidara grimaced. "We have to go back," Sasuke demanded. Deidara shot him a strange look, his mouth dropping. "Idiot! We can't go back now!" "But Sakura and Neji may be hurt. Neji's my partner. I've known them both since grade school." "We can't go back!" Deidara exclaimed, and muttered under his breath, "Damn, Baby Uchiha needs to make up his mind what he wants to do." "I heard that." "Well, get then! You can't have it both ways, Baby Uchiha. You can't run from them and then run to them when they're hurt. Besides, I'm sure they're fine. They looked fine, right?" "I will kill you if either of them is hurt in any way," Sasuke vowed. "Sheesh, you're nothing like your brother." "That's right, I'm not a murderer." Deidara frowned but stayed quiet. Sasuke apparently didn't realize the conflicting nature of his words, and it was too much to hope that a car chase would deviate Sasuke's thoughts of his brother being a murderer. "If you're convinced of that, why didn't you turn me over? Why run?" "Because they had stopped me. Naruto especially. I will do this my way." 10 minutes later, Sasuke was out of the truck as soon as they parked. Deidara sighed and exited slowly, not wanting to startle the already on edge younger Uchiha. He caught up with Sasuke yelling at his brother. "You lying son of a bitch! You manipulating bastard!" Sasuke pulled down his gun again, this time training on his brother. Itachi looked sick to his stomach, and a phone was ringing incessantly in the background with a standard ring. "Sasuke," Itachi started, attempted to cut across Sasuke's tirade. Sasuke wasn't hearing it and continued to yell. "Shut up! Don't talk to me! Don't ever say my name again, you bastard, unless you're on your knees begging for forgiveness! You ruined my life!" Tears and emotion bubbled up in him. Sasuke took a moment to calm down. "You're both under arrest for murder and facilitation!" Itachi tried to speak again. "Shut up! I'm not going to let myself be fooled again! I can't believe I trusted you! How could I even entertain the idea that our father would set up his son, his eldest son, the one he doted on and put all his hopes on, would set him up for murder? How could you? You just threw his body in a cistern!" Itachi impressed Deidara with how clear-headed he looked with a screaming little brother and a gun pointed at his chest. Itachi absorbed everything his brother was saying. Their father's body was in the cistern. He was trying to figure it all out as his brother continued to yell at him. "My partner could be dead or seriously injured because of your murdering ass!" Itachi gripped his forehead and pinched the bridge of his nose, warding off a migraine, something he inherited from his father along with the tear troughs on his cheeks. The phone in his pocket renewed its ringing as Sasuke repeated his tirade, vowing to arrest Itachi. Noise always got to him, and right now he was at his breaking point with the stress of finding out not only was he on the wrong track, but that his father was already dead. Itachi snapped and slapped his brother across the cheek. "Go to your room," he hissed. "We will talk about this later." He pulled his hand back just to rub his throbbing forehead. Sasuke touched his palm to his face, feeling his skin heat up with pain and embarrassment. Sasuke was so shocked he lowered his gun. "I need to think." Itachi turned away to do just that. The way Itachi just dismissed him and turned his unguarded back to him made Sasuke doubt himself. He gave a nod of his head and slunk off, almost in tears. "The quick version, Deidara," Itachi ordered. Deidara told him everything as quickly as possible, then Itachi waved him off. Deidara walked away in the same direction Sasuke did, leaving Itachi alone with his ringing phone. He knew when to give Itachi space. Kakashi continued on to where Sakura blew the tire. Neither of them were badly hurt, just some bruising from the seatbelts. The car's fender was only slightly damaged as well. Neji had called a tow truck. Kakashi summoned an ambulance to get the pair looked over just in case. Kakashi hovered over his two subordinates as the paramedics looked them over, giving Naruto an opportunity to walk a little distance away and call Itachi. "Pick up the damn phone!" Naruto growled, punching Sasuke's number on his speed dial again. Deme, answer me!" Right now, both Uchiha were labeled Deme in his mind, Bastard 1 and Bastard 2. After 5 rings, the phone went to voicemail, further aggravating Naruto. He didn't let up and dialed again, and twice more after that before the phone clicked and the ringing was replaced with a deep sigh. Your persistence isn't helpful, Naruto.
Cut the crap, Itachi!
Naruto hissed, but shivered all the same. Damn Uchiha bastards, Naruto thought crossly.
What the hell is going on? Dime saw us. I know he did. And he ran. He ran from me. I thought I was helping you.
You are, Naruto.
Then why did he run?
He grabbed at his blonde hair tightly and pulled, wincing from the sudden pain. Itachi sighed. That's something you will have to ask him yourself. In fact, considering what happened tonight, that surprises me.
I can't believe Sasuke ran. I can't believe Nechi found him.
Naruto paused and gripped his phone tightly, lowering his voice accordingly.
Did you get done what you needed? Did we interrupt you? What were they doing there?
No, we've had a setback, Itachi admitted reluctantly.
What does that mean?
Naruto exploded again. It means we've had a setback, Itachi snapped. This was the first time he lost patience with the irritating FBI agent. Look, I have to go.
Don't you dare hang up on me, Itachi Uchiha.
Itachi stopped cold, a memory of his deceased mother surfacing. She used to get testy with him and used his full name when he tried to push her away, when he didn't want to talk to her because somehow she always knew what was in his heart. Somehow, Naruto was the same way, and they hadn't even met yet.
Tell me,
Naruto pleaded.
Don't I have the right to know?
Itachi exhaled, running his hand through his hair. We were close, he admitted. I thought we were close. But it turned out it wasn't him.
It's not your...
No, I was wrong. He's dead, Itachi nearly whispered.
Damn it,
Naruto breathed.
That was your only lead, right?
Yes, Itachi sighed, sounding disheartened and defeated.
And you have no idea who it could be now?
Itachi stood in shock. He really didn't know why, but he was. Naruto still believed he was innocent. Truly believed it. Not even a moment of doubt. Unlike Sasuke. You still don't think it's me? He gasped, quickly clearing his throat to dislodge the lump that formed there.
I didn't say that,
Naruto replied.
But no, I don't think you're guilty.
You have no idea what that means to me to hear you say that.
Probably not,
Naruto muttered softly.
How's Sasuke? I must blame you now.
I can get him to give me another chance.
Do you need any help?
Itachi licked his dry lips. I can handle Sasuke, but I need a favor.
Of course.
Can you recover the remains for us? I wouldn't ask, but I'm not in a position.
No, I can do that much for you. Where are they?
Near where you saw Sasuke, in the bunker. But tell me, the two in the car chasing Sasuke, were they hurt?
No, they're fine, just a few bruises.
Good. I'll let Sasuke know. He was concerned for them. Get me the autopsy report as soon as possible, please. You know the date for the murder, right? 9262004 is my Yahoo email account.
Sure, I'll send it to you.
His own cold way of referring to his father's body hit him, and he suddenly broke down and started crying, still on the phone with Naruto.
Itachi?
My father's dead! Itachi wailed. He was too choked up for his voice to carry far out of the family room.
Itachi,
Naruto cooed. Itachi sniffed and tried to rein in his emotions.
Itachi, I wish I could be there with you right now. Where's Sasuke?
His room.
He must be taken in hard too.
Itachi chuckled through his grief. No, he's too furious. He thought I was playing with him. That I did do it. He sighed. Even though I thought he framed me, finding out he's dead and that he didn't frame me. I loved my father, Naruto. He could be a cold bastard, especially to Sasuke, but I loved him. He was my father. Naruto didn't like how Itachi said his name, completely normally. The dark, flirting tone was gone, but the grief was what really hurt Naruto.
I'm really sorry about your father, Itachi.
Thank you. I'm going to get some sleep.
Alright, I'll see what I can do to stall the investigation. Good night.
Thanks. Itachi tossed Sasuke's phone onto the sofa. He went to his room and was glad Deidara wasn't there. He shut and locked the door. He didn't try to hold back his tears any longer. All this time he believed his father had set him up and killed their mother and the rest of their family. But now he was innocent. And Sasuke was right. His words reminded him of how proud Fukaku had always been of him and told Sasuke to be like him. He never mourned for his father, certain he was alive and the villain here. He mourned now. Kakashi was finally shooed away by Sakura and the paramedics, so he went back to his own car and leaned against the door, trying to sort out why Sasuke would run from them and not to them. Of course, if he was ever going to run toward them, he would have contacted them before now. At least they were almost completely certain now that they weren't dealing with a kidnapping and certainly not a murder. The tow truck arrived and quickly hooked up Sakura's car. After getting Sakura's information, the driver drove off. Kakashi continued to think, his chin in his hand, when Naruto's hushed but excited voice intruded, and his pacing got to the point of annoying the older agent. Who the hell could the blonde agent be speaking with? Kakashi narrowed his eyes as he watched the blonde. Naruto suddenly stopped sounding angry and stopped pacing. Kakashi tried to decipher it all, but came up blank. He couldn't be talking to Sasuke. Who was he talking to? Kakashi took a deep breath. He was so close to Sasuke. Saw him. He pictured those few moments and realized Sasuke had been wearing a bandage on his head. A blow to the head? Amnesia? Confusion? And he had his gun drawn, but he ran with the blonde and let the blonde drive. He grunted and rubbed his head in frustration. They were so close. Sasuke just slipped through their fingers. Through his fingers. The paramedics started to pack up. Kakashi went over. How are they? No serious injuries, the paramedic stated. Thank you. Turning to Neji and Sakura, he said. Take the day off. I'll clear it. Get some rest. Thanks. We'll keep you informed. Naruto finally hung up and joined them. Naruto, we're going back to the property, Kakashi said. I want to know why Sasuke came out here tonight. Right. You two come with us. We'll take you back to your car, Kakashi said, speaking to Neji. Then you can drive Sakura home. Yeah, no problem. It was a quiet drive back. Kakashi dropped Neji and Sakura off, then drove back onto the property. Kakashi used his high beams to look for the spot they found Sasuke. It was difficult to find, but Kakashi's innate sense of direction kicked in. They found the cistern's entrance with the door pulled up and jutting slightly upward. Glove compartment. There are a pair of flashlights, Kakashi said. Naruto retrieved the lights and the pair approached the cistern. Naruto already knew from talking to Itachi what they were going to find. He was apprehensive, to say the least. Kakashi took point, carefully stepping down the stairs. Sasuke's flashlight was still on and inside the hole with the bones. Kakashi gave the area a quick sweep with his light before going straight for the lit-up hole. The bones were not obvious from the angle of the light, but when Kakashi swept his light over the skull, there was no mistaking the same. Call forensics, Kakashi said. Get them down here immediately. Right. Naruto went back up to the surface to make the call. Sasuke finally had time to think rationally without being pursued or purposely nursing his anger and indignation. If Itachi had killed their father, he never would have sent he and Deidara to that cistern to find him. It wasn't Itachi. He left his room in search of his brother. Finding him nowhere else, he went to his brother's bedroom. Sasuke heard sniffling. He knocked. Itachi? Itachi didn't answer. Aniki? I'm sorry. I know it wasn't you. Still no response. Sasuke tried the knob, but found it locked. He took out his wallet and the lockpicks he kept there. He opened the door silently and climbed onto the bed where his brother had his face buried in a pillow, crying. Itachi jumped, but Sasuke held him down. Itachi's grief infected him and he started to weep as well. Sasuke didn't really have hope their father was alive, but confronting the fact he was dead, again, hurt. For the first time since the day after the murders, the brothers were able to grieve together. Friday, November 13th. Kakashi remained in the cistern looking around while waiting for forensics. Naruto stayed above to meet them. All the other pools were empty. In the furthest corners of the room were various pieces of farm equipment and old pumps for irrigation. Most of the hoses had disintegrated, but enough scraps remained to identify what they once were. None of it looked like it had been touched in at least 50 years. Kakashi realized that after 11 years, there was little to no forensic evidence left. Luminol could identify possible blood traces, but with the insect and rodent activity and water leaking through the ground, and those doors, everything was too contaminated to have any further value. So, like Sasuke before him, Kakashi jumped down into the pool with the bones. He left the flashlight alone but scanned the floor. There were long dark hairs, more than 2 feet long. He really shouldn't have, but he needed to know what was going on here, and he felt time was of the essence. He picked up one of the hairs and held it up to the light. It was brown, not black. Was this not an Uchiha then? He looked around, and there were other, shorter hairs. He picked one up and put it up to the light. This one was jet black, like Sasuke's. These were the hair of an Uchiha, the others were not. They weren't blonde either, so they weren't from the man Sasuke was with. There were enough of the shorter black hairs that Kakashi was certain those were from the corpse and not from Sasuke, unless the blonde was giving him a haircut down here. He climbed back out so as not to be caught and scolded by the CSI. He looked down at the floor of the pool again. Staring at it, he noticed a dark patch near the edge he had hopped down from. That was where the body lied as it decomposed, he was certain of it. That's where the blood and acids and other fluids seeped and ran out of the body as the flesh rotted and was eaten. A fresh corpse was dumped here years ago. Kakashi came to the same conclusion as Sasuke. This had to be Fugaku's corpse. As soon as CSI came down the rotting steps, Kakashi explained. There are bones in the pool with the light in it. There are 2 lengths of hair, so make sure you gather all of them. Spray luminol on the floor here. He indicated the ground at his feet. You might find a blood trail. Get the bones to the pathologist as soon as possible. This might have a connection to Agent Uchiha's disappearance. He was here with a blonde man earlier tonight. Check the ground around the entrance for this cistern and find any trace of DNA and hairs you can. You might even get the fingerprints from the edge of the pool. Mine will probably be there too from looking over the edge. Apologies. Sasuke Uchiha's are likely there too, as well as on the flashlights. This is all high priority. I need results as fast as possible. Yes, sir. Kakashi was being pretty assertive with them, but they knew him and that he was particularly stressed over Sasuke's disappearance. Once the people in white T-Vex suits had arrived, Kakashi made his way up to the open air. Naruto was leaning against Kakashi's car. I'll take you back to your car, Kakashi said to Naruto. I told them to hurry it up, so we might have something to go on in the morning.
They'll rush the autopsy of the body?
Yeah.
Good. That might be the key to all of this.
Kakashi agreed. End of chapter 7. Stay tuned.